Welcome to the Sellosophy Podcast. Why do I call it Sellosophy? Because it's the combination of the word sales and philosophy. And who better to philosophize not only about life, but also sales with a really good friend, Tricia Brouwers, who is a fellow exactly what to say certified guide. And she is joining me today to talk a little bit about her journey. And we're going to talk a little bit about something that I feel has impacted me the most in the little time that I know you, Trish, which is passion, purpose, intention, impact, and, sort of not only how to lead others, but really leading yourself with purpose. And so, Trish, for those of you who don't know you, would you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
I am so excited to be here, and I am so blessed to call you friend. And to be here today and just share these moments and some of our interpersonal stories and a little bit of our journey, not only in exactly what to say in leadership and in life. I've been in the executive sales space for quite a period of time. I've been specifically in the mortgage industry for over 30 years. And through the course of time, one of my greatest passions has been helping people become the most productive versions of themselves, personally and professionally. And that led into a really interesting journey to help real estate professionals specifically become more productive. And really, ultimately, it's about creating the win-win. When they become more productive personally and professionally, my people become more productive personally and professionally. And it's how can I help you? And it's how can you help us? And it's just this really great partnership and synergy. And it's probably one of the greatest loves that I have outside of my main loves in my life, just helping people. I recognize that mortgage was my mission field. And so was leadership. And to be able to make the greatest amount of impact in the least amount of time, reaching many, many people, has really been what has driven me specifically over the last decade in my 30-year career.
I want to circle back to your mission, which you
Mm.
said it very easily because you say it often. But when I heard it the first time, it really impacted me. And it was you reach the most amount of people in the least amount of time, making the greatest amount of impact. Am I right? Did I say that correctly?
Spot on, word for word.
I kind of am curious of like, when was the day where like that struck to you that when you said, I guess what needed to have happened for you to like really make that your mission?
I was on a really interesting journey in life about 10 years ago. And there was a part of me that it actually goes back probably greater than 10 years ago. It's most likely 12 to 13 years ago at this point in time, recognizing that time continues to move and we continue to get older, which I don't know how that happens. And I was at a point in time in my career where I wasn't sure if I was even going to stay in the mortgage business. I was dropping my kids off at camp, and camp was a very special place for me because I have a long history in youth ministry, 25 years in junior high and children's ministry. And camp was a place that I always just loved. And I was dropping my kids off at camp at the place that I loved. And as I was letting them out of the truck that day, the day camp leader was one of my former youth group kids. And I gave her the biggest hug. I got out of my car, and with tears, I said, I am so proud of you for what you are doing and what you are accomplishing. And there's a part of me that's really jealous of you today. And she's like, why is that? And she's like, I'm at camp. And I said, because you get to run around with my kids and all of these kids today. And I get to go to my office. I'm very jealous of you today. And I hugged her. I got in the car and I just wept. And it was such a moment where I sat back and I was going through Rick Warren's 40 Days of Purpose. And the first chapter of the book is, what on earth am I here for? And the first sentence of the book is, it's not all about you, right? Or it's not all about me. And as I was going through this and I went to my office, I was sobbing. And my husband, I called him and he said, help me understand what's going on, Trish. Why is this impacting you so much today? And I said, I honestly am jealous and I don't know what I'm jealous of. Is it the freedom of the space? Is it that she's playing with my kids? Is it that she's playing with other kids? And he said, so you do realize that if you worked at camp, you'd probably be making $7 an hour, and that wouldn't necessarily fund your big mission. And with that, I said, okay, well, I can understand that. And I was feeling a little insignificant in what I did. And I totally firmly believe that we all need to get comfortable with money because money funds the mission. And I sat in my office and I had 3 sets of clients that day. The first client that came in, they had a young boy, very, very little boy, 2.5 years old, 3 years old, that lived with Down syndrome. And they had just been denied for a mortgage. The greatest compliment in my career is when someone would say, Trish, they need more than a mortgage, and proceeded to give me the client's information. Because then I knew there was a bigger global picture there, that I was supposed to serve this family, and it wasn't just about a transaction. It was they needed what I had to bring. And this little boy climbed up in my chair and started rubbing my back as I was inputting their parents' application, recognizing that the difference between this child getting the services that they need or not was dependent upon this loan approval and them being able to proceed with this transaction in this house. And I prayed over every keystroke and it came back approved, and I was able to proceed, and we could put that aside and say, okay, can we create introductions for your child to get into the school district to get the services that they need? And they left. Second client came in, and they had a young teen that was away at a boot camp for the summer, and it was a behavioral camp to try and bring some of the behaviors in with this child to give him a greater outcome in life. And it was $34,000. This family was broken as to how were they going to afford a $34,000 treatment plan that at that time was not covered by insurance. And we had to create a financial solution, but we needed to put the finances aside and say, you do understand this is not your fault. And can we have this conversation? And the 20 plus years of youth ministry came into play in my office that day, where I was able to have a conversation and help them not only create a financial solution, but start to create resolution in their own life about guilt that they were carrying over their child's diagnosis. The third family that came in, and this was my final appointment for the day, just about did an about face in the doorway when they saw me, and they said, we can't be here. And I said, well, help me understand how you can't be here today, because we do have an appointment and I'd like to understand more about that. And they said, well, we know you. And I said, okay, so, and they said, well, we know you and we really want to make sure that our privacy is protected through this. We've got some major financial issues. And I said, because you know me and you know where my heart is at, is it possible that you don't have to worry about anything being shared outside of these 4 walls, and we can just get into creating great solutions together? And as we started to walk through that, these people left my office, and I sobbed in my office so hard, thinking, why on earth did I ever feel insignificant in what it was that I was doing within those 4 walls? And it led me on a journey to really understand that I happened to be in a place that had the ability to influence and impact people. And is there a way that I could get great clarity on that and understand that my job, my goal, my purpose was to reach the most amount of people in the least amount of time, making the greatest amount of impact? And is it possible that this is the vehicle for me to be able to do that, not only within the 4 walls of my office that day, but in the walls of the world? And that's where I started on my journey, really getting clarity on that and recognizing that that was my mission field. That was where I was called to be. And it was, now how can I take that and just create that ripple effect? That was one pebble in the pond that created many ripples that day. There's another part to the story that I very often don't share. But that young lady that I hugged that day, went to the Lord 2 weeks after that in an automobile accident. And that was the last time I was able to hug her. And I share that because sometimes people are put here to inspire you and influence you to make a difference in this world. She was my inspiration that day when I left. And that is part of what I carry every day, is to make sure that I'm living a very purposeful life to be able to influence and impact. And I think that's where I love the work that we do. And I'm so privileged to do it. And I did not expect to cry with you today, Carlos. But
Wow. Less
Um,
than 10 minutes in.
woo! Is that a record for you?
It's actually a first, but yeah, I mean, we
Oh,
do get emotional here, but I
yeah.
think it's
Well,
just so powerful. Okay, so what I think was so amazing about that story to that question, kind of what inspired you to really go on this mission was how you can observe such little details in your day-to-day life and really find deeper meaning behind it. And I think about this person that you hugged deeply and you realized, for them, it could have, you also kind of changed their day and their perspective of what purpose was to her, right?
mhm.
Because some people just kind of live on thinking, well, I'm just a blank, right? Well, I'm just a mortgage lender, or I'm just a camp counselor, or I'm just and just the mindset shift of changing it to I get to, right?
Mhm.
Like I get to put people in new homes. I get to enrich children, with meaningful childhood memories so that they can live a beautiful, happy life, right? Like, and just being able to shift that, I think that's the game changer of the difference between making an impact and not. And you do it so well, right? You show up everywhere, so passionate, so genuinely invested in wanting to impact people with the examples that you shared in helping these families that were going through unique circumstances, and how you used the vehicle of the work that you do, right, through lending. You give them access to a better, an easier life or a better solution. And I love that you were able to make a connection with the work that you do, and not only how you impact the customers that you help, but also serving the folks that follow you, right, through leadership and being so ingrained with the community, which is something that you mentioned. And so I just really, really admire that. I'm wondering for you, as it's happened for me, I've always been a very inquisitive child. I've always kind of asked since I was a kid, like, why this? Why does that work that way? Why do we do it that way? Especially when I was like a rookie, right? Like, and like you, right? We're both come from a financial space. When I was a rookie, I wouldn't question things. I was just always asking like, but why? Like, I
Right.
remember one time I had a great leader, my coach, my first manager, who really like helped me go from this kid who didn't know, like, who didn't keep more than $100 in his checking account and had no idea how to do money management. Somehow I got hired to become a banker and handle millions of dollars of these people's accounts and lend hundreds of thousands of dollars to real customers. And in my head, I was like, I guess I need to walk the talk, right? Like I need to make sure that I'm also financially responsible and I am the example of financial success. But I remember this one time I had a lead, I had an opportunity, and I go to my leader and I go, hey, I've got this customer. He said he needs a line of credit for whatever. And I just told him, yeah, we can do that. But I didn't know if we could do it or we can't do it. I just wanted to make sure that we could try to facilitate it. And I wanted to genuinely try to help the customer find a solution.
Mhm.
So what do I do? And my boss goes,
What now?
well, so my boss goes, well, do you know what all of their sources of income are? I'm
Mhm.
like, what's that? I literally
Right.
had no idea what she meant by that.
Sure.
And then she was like, well, where does his income come from? Now, mind you, I'm 21, 22 years old,
Mhm.
and she's being very patient with me while this kid who's just learning banking, lending, all these concepts, she's like, well, source of income, it allows us to understand if he has the ability to repay, it lowers the risk, blah, 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 blah. And I go,
The great lending
why
terms.
is that important? Right. And I always had this, why is that important? Why is that important? And I think a lot of, you know, the, when we get to the what is our mission and our purpose, is just so important to understand the why behind it. And I just love that you really got into that. But leading to a question is,
You bet.
when did you realize that curiosity was a superpower for you?
When I needed to learn as a leader that I needed to seek to understand. That was a key principle for years. I was raised by a dad that it was my way or the highway, Ron, is how I refer to my dad. And my dad was very tunnel focused, very laser focused. And that's a good quality to have when you need drive and intent to deliver and kind of nothing's going to stand in your way. And that's great with motivation for yourself to accomplish your goals. It's not necessarily a great quality in a leader, because that can be a steamroller approach to leadership where I will get done what I need to get done and I don't care about the shrapnel effect or who I'm stepping on along the way. And I think when I got into leadership, I had a steamroller approach. I didn't always come from curiosity. And I think that's where I realized what a superpower it was, because I had a very influential leader in my life, as you just shared in your life. And this leader said to me, there is a mantra that I want you to learn. But he also knew that I was teachable and I was coachable and ready to learn it. And he said, it's the seek to understand mantra. Before you jump to a conclusion or before you jump into a solution, I need you to take a step back. And he needed me to dial down my IQ and dial up my EQ and understand, right, along the way, what questions could I be asking? And it's interesting because I see this framework, and I think that's why I relate so well with Phil and exactly what to say, because it's really about, what questions lead to what type of conversation. And I needed to get clarity on that seek to understand mantra. And that's when I started to realize that, wait a minute, I can get results and people will still like me. In the end, I can get results and I can enlist the support of others to be a part of the solution, and I don't have to do it by myself. It was a game changer for me from a leadership perspective. And then I think what I realized then is it was modeled for me. I also then needed to go out and model the way. And to be able to do that, I started to recognize I liked myself more. I liked people around me more. The people around me liked me more. And because it wasn't a situation that I had to muscle my way to a result, I actually had to ask a lot of great questions to identify opportunity to lead to the result.
Yeah, and this reminds me so much of like I always go back to my early. I think we all come with great intentions always, right? I think as humans, when we're raised, we want to do our best. Even like when you're a kid, right? Like you try something for the first time, and oftentimes you build resiliency when you fail, but you're passionate about getting it right. You'll do it over and over again. You'll learn a different way, a different angle. But often when you do it wrong and under the wrong environment or the wrong circumstances, you might judge yourself. And because, I'm not good enough, and it affects your self-esteem. And I think when becoming a leader, especially for me, when I was becoming a young leader, a lot of these assumptions or judgments that I would pose upon others without being curious was probably a lot because I wasn't reflecting on my own, kind of curiosity towards me. Like, could it be possible that there's something else to the story? And if I could stay curious rather than solving so fast or judging so fast, could there be something more to that? And I think the light bulb moment for me was when I played this game. I had a boss that we played this game, and it was in the context of having a conversation with a customer. When typically early on, when we're in sales conversations, we tend to once we learn everything, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but my mind initially always thought that being a great salesperson is a person that can talk really well, like that has the gift of the gab, right? Like the person that can be the most knowledgeable, have the most features. And early on, I felt like that was a good scaffolding for me. That was like a good support system to support my lack of experience. So I knew if I didn't have experience, at the very least, I'll be the most knowledgeable, because I know that if I know it, at least I can fuel my confidence. But the second half that was missing for me, at least, was my ability to actually listen, understand, and match the other person's, situation with all this knowledge that I had around being able to connect how my solution can help. And I found myself failing really early because I asked, they gave me a script, ask these 3 questions and then just solve, right? And I would solve too fast. I didn't stay in the moment and really understand the person's entire picture. But we played this game, and the leader said, we're going to play this game where you're just going to ask questions, and the only objective is do not solve.
Oh, wow.
And we literally went into a 5 minute client conversation, and you would see all these like rookie people like fidgeting because they've asked the question, they've uncovered the need, and they're like so like eager to like, well, I can offer you this loan for this much and this is the rate, right?
Right.
And it
Right.
was such a just like a triggered reaction. We're just so
Mhm.
fast to solve rather than just stay in the moment and learn about the person. And I remember I got to meet that person who I got to practice with, and I learned that they love to travel, and I learned that, family is really important to them, and like all these other things that
Mhm.
had nothing really directly related to the solution. But I knew that knowing this context would have helped me build a higher level of trust and rapport, and maybe even make some more indirect connections to how the solution could be more impactful towards what they needed. And I think after that exercise, I was like, that one hit me really, really hard. And it just reminded me that we need to commit to ourselves to the moment and detach ourselves from the outcome. We're like so eager to just be so outcome driven rather than just staying in the moment and serve what the moment is asking of you.
Well, and I think in any type of, competitive situation, as an example, what is going to set you apart? I just had this conversation with a group of loan officers yesterday. If a client is looking for the lowest rate possible, they're going to look for the lowest rate possible. That's what they're going to do. If they're wired for rate and that's what matters most to them, nothing else is going to matter. However, if you enter into the conversation to build the relationship and you don't lead with rate, and you start to really understand what matters most. And if you were to have a conversation with a client that say, help me understand what the three most important things in this transaction are to you. And they say, rate, term, service. Okay, well, I heard rate, term, service. Is it actually in that order for you? Is rate the first thing that came to mind, or is it truly the most important thing? Terms, service. When you start to understand an order of priority, what the other person is thinking and what does matter most, and you kind of sit in that, then you can start to ask questions. What about the rate being the lowest is most important to you? Or what about this term is most important to you? They may say, I want a 15-year mortgage because I want to pay it off in 15 years because I'm planning on my future looking like this. Okay, great. Just imagine you're in that future. And then we start having conversations about that as we build relatability with the person on the other side. If all things are equal somewhere else, and let's just say it is rates, who are they going to choose to work with? The person that took the time to build the relationship, or the person that jumped right into solution where they didn't ask any questions? And by the way, this is part of knowing who the person is on the other side. You are going to have an analytical type person that doesn't want anything outside of numbers, doesn't want you to get to know them, doesn't, it's don't ask me about my kids, don't ask me about my dog, don't ask me about my fish because I don't have any of them. It's me and me alone, and that's all I worry about. And you're going to know that through a process of conversation too, and asking great questions, because it gets clarity on who we're serving and it gets clarity on what we're solving. And sometimes it's not about what we think it is in the moment. And the rookie move is to jump into solution. The rookie move
Mm-hmm.
is I've got a product for that, or I've got a solution for that. And if we omit them from being a part of that process, we're missing key parts of the foundation of the relationship that gives us permission to turn around and move forward and solve. And I think that when we're young in the business, whether it's a young executive, a young leader, a young loan officer, a young banker, I mean, insert here, and young isn't age, young is experience. So you could be, second career mortgage or second career real estate or second career accountant, right? Because you decided I love numbers so much now I want to go get my CPA, and you left one career for another. When you're young in your career or your experience, it's about allowing yourself to learn about who are you serving and what are you solving for, in order to give us permission to actually move into a solution. And I think in all areas of life and business, if we spent more time in conversation, we'd have greater conversion.
Yeah, that's great. That's super powerful. And I think the biggest one that stuck out to me when you were talking about the example, and the direct one that everyone struggles with. And I'm sure in your team, like that's what the most common scenario is: rate, price, fees, right? Like people, we tend to also kind of, we might make the mistake that we're not curious enough. We tend to just put them on the side into this category. Those are just tire kickers. Those are just rate shoppers. Those are just, they only care about price. Well, what if we stayed a little bit curious and kind of really understand the reason behind that? Because I'll tell you, like, I'm not saying that I represent the way everybody thinks, but if I think this way, I'm sure others do too. And
Sure.
could I attract people who think this way? I recently was shopping around for a money market rate, right? And I was thinking about like my bank. Well, obviously the bank that I used to work for, who is the bank that I use for my services. And I was shopping around, and there were a few other places where they were offering like really competitive money market, interest rates for a significant amount of savings. And I was like looking at that place, and my money was already parked in my existing bank, and I was like really trying to stay with my current bank, even though the rate was actually a little bit less than the others. But my reasons were, because we know that people do things for their reasons. My reasons were like, well, I trust the bank, right? Like it works for me. It's gonna be enough for me. And like there were all these factors. So I was just like, do I really want to go through the hassle of putting, all of these savings that I have at risk at a different institution that I haven't built any history with, any relationship with? They know nothing about me. I have to start the whole process again. And I just think about like, could price shoppers value that too, right? And so I think our way to differentiate ourselves is being invested in that moment by asking curious questions and helping them self-realize, is there something of a bigger priority other than price? Or let's just put price to the side for a moment. What else do you value? Well, it's service, is being able to know when I pick up the phone call that you're going to pick it up. That was something really funny. I just saw a clip yesterday of it. Do you watch The Office?
I do not.
Have you watched? Okay. So you know about the show The Office with
I do
like
know
all
about the
these.
show. Yep.
Okay. So they're selling paper. And just a quick anecdote, like these two guys go out to a sales call, and they're trying to convince an existing potential customer to switch over to them. And one guy is asking all these questions, and the other guy picks up the actual business phone, puts it on speaker, and dials their existing paper provider. And while he's is dialing it, there's like an automated system that says, for customer service, press one. And then it presses one, and you get the hold music. And while that's happening, the other sales professional is asking him, well, how important is service to you? And he's like, very important. And they're on hold while he calls his own company. And he's like, customer service, this is Kelly. Oh, hi, Kelly. Thanks. And it was just showing the example
Right,
of,
the difference.
this is what you get with us versus you can just be on hold and just be another number. And how that would, to me, was just like, what a beautiful, obviously, I don't think I would ever have the goal to go to an office and do that. But I just felt like the illustration of it was, what a great way to illustrate, being able to expose that there are other things that people value.
Yes. And it's about understanding what is it that they value. And the only time that we can learn that is when we're asking great questions and having that conversation to learn what matters most to them on the other side.
Yeah. I want to circle back towards the word purpose. And I know that when you are motivating, I'm sure yourself and your community and your team, oftentimes purpose can be a little bit derailed or maybe lost or foggy for some people. And you say this phrase called, how do you turn, purpose into possibilities? Mm-hmm. So how do you help someone that might feel lost, even customers, right? Or your team members, or maybe if you've gone through it personally, to kind of like understand like, what is my purpose? And then how do you turn that into action possibilities and maybe the compass towards taking action?
I think there's 3 key steps that you could really look at with it. And the first is self-reflection. if we go back to the initial story when I was talking about, my course in life and how I was feeling insignificant and thinking I needed to leave mortgage and that there was something I needed to do differently. And I had this self-reflection where I had to live in my moments, live in the moments that were given to me, and really just spend time being still in those moments to see what is the bigger picture. Self-reflection is huge. When you think about where you want to go, you also have to kind of look back at where you've been. It's about really understanding, what do I stand for? Self-reflection in that moment is, what do I stand for? What principles and decisions drive my actions? What is it that has brought me joy? What has brought me pain? Where am I the happiest? What are the things that I feel the most passionate about? And really taking those moments to really think about that and be still in that and reflect. And when you can start to realize, and sometimes it's a simple exercise of, think about a time where you have had success in your life. Whether it's a personal relationship or it's a work accomplishment, maybe it's a personal goal, maybe it's the first time that you ran a 5K and crossed the finish line. Whatever it is, and you reflect back on that success, take a moment and think about the steps that you had to take in order to get there. So if I'm running a 5K for the first time, as an example, and I don't know what I'm doing, maybe it's a situation that I am enlisting, I'm doing some online research, and then maybe I'm starting to talk to others. But then deep down inside, it doesn't matter what research I do. It doesn't matter what others say. What is the narrative that I'm telling myself is going to be the most powerful narrative? Because I'm going to tell myself I can do something, or I'm going to tell myself I can't do something. And this is where possibilities into purpose comes into play, because a lot of times we think of impossibilities. We think about what's impossible, what I can't do, instead of taking a step back and reflecting to say, okay, wait, I've had success here before. Here are the steps that I took to get there. How can that apply to what it is that I want to achieve now? Because the steps are always transferable. It's kind of a really unique exercise to go through. It takes us back to self-reflection, though, to just be still for a little bit, and understand, what drives you and what it is. The second thing is identifying those key moments. I had a key moment. I could have ignored that moment. I had a day full of those moments. I had Deb's, and then I had my office, and I had these 3 sets of clients, and I sat there and I was open to learning what everything around me was trying to tell me. And so I think that's where identifying those key moments and then going back to the self-reflection piece really makes a difference. And I think the third thing is really understanding that you have to prioritize your values. And for me, I know my 3 key core values. I will also tell you that they've changed. As a core person and as a being, my core values have not changed. How I define them in one word has changed. However, there's a lot of things that go up into that one word to make Tricia Brouwers, Tricia Brouwers. And I think when you get very clear on that, and my 3 are advocacy, authenticity, and legacy. And advocacy is, I was being prepared to be an advocate from a very young girl, 7-year-old me to 9-year-old me to teenage me. I was being prepared every single day of my life to be my son's mom. And my 26-year-old son, Darren, lives with autism. And I could very easily step back and look now, which again causes self-reflection and identifying key moments in life, right? To say it wasn't about being an advocate when I became his mom. It was the entire lifetime of experience that I had in order to be his mom. And I think we can step back and look at that. And advocacy is a huge key core value for me, which shows up in every interaction that I have with people that I'm looking to serve and solve. Authenticity for me is huge because I always have to be authentically me. I can't abandon who I am for the sake of someone else. It doesn't mean I'm not coachable. It doesn't mean I'm not adaptable. I 100% am coachable and adaptable. At the core of my being, though, there are things that I will not compromise for the sake of a goal. I am very clear on what those are. And in order for me to be authentically me, someone had said years ago, and it was in some work that we were doing, and it was beautifully stated. It's okay to be a voice, try not to be an echo. And
Wow.
in order to be a voice in this world, right, you have to be authentically you. You want the audio and the video to match. I was having this conversation with a leader, matter of fact, yesterday about a team member. And this team member is so incredibly good in one arena, and it's inconsistent in another arena. If they are authentically themselves, there should be no difference between both arenas. We just have to identify which is the authentic person and help them be an extension of the authentic person in the other space. And if we find that the person in this space is here and the person is in this space is here, we got to help this person rise up to be this person so that it's consistent in a meeting, outside of a meeting, on camera, off camera, on social, in life. And I think that's where authenticity comes in. And legacy is about really understanding, I want to know I made a difference. It goes back to the fact that we're all here, we're all created for a purpose. Let's get clarity on what your purpose is, and there's a journey to do that. Then when you live out your purpose, you are in your space. That is where you are called to be, meant to be. Success is there. And I want someone to say, when I am no longer here, she made a difference. I do not want the words out of their mouth to be, boy, she worked hard.
Wow, that is so powerful. Sometimes I forget to respond because I'm just like leaning on every word you're saying. I just love this conversation, and I feel like it's a personal journey of mine too, around like really writing out, knowing what those core values are, and going back to whatever action, belief, choice, decision is made when you wake up to when you go to sleep, or whatever thoughts cross your mind. Because I think like we live in a world that we're being exposed to so much information. We're sort of being influenced to compare ourselves to what excellence looks like, or what a high standard of something looks like. And oftentimes these are just they're real hidden, superficial things. I really do feel that. And I think if we're not fully connected to our core values and our purpose, we could easily fall into the trap of thinking like the way the outside world wants us to, or be influenced by these short-term, high superficial, standards or definitions of what society defines what success is, or defines what happy is, right? Like we talk about it a lot. It's been talked about a lot, but like in social media, a lot of people post just highlight reels and that's not what life is. Life is, and work and career and the journey of sales and all these things. There's always ups and there's always downs, and you can learn from both. You obviously enjoy the great times and the memories. Those are the things that remind you, why it's worth it to wake up and do the hard work. And then in the tough times, it's just, staying in the moment, understanding it, embracing it, find the resources, just go through rather than give up. Because giving up is a really hard thing to do. And sometimes it does take courage to give up. And maybe giving up could be the right answer, as long as giving up is the answer to what aligns to your core values. I mean, I gave up corporate life and I'm proud of it. But when I gave it up, I did have an internal conflict of, I quit something, right? Am I a quitter or whatever, right? But I needed to shift that mindset and circle back to my core values, which was I'm an independent thinker. I'm a creative thinker, and working for a big corporation that was not accepting that, and they were limiting my potential. was not part of my core values. So it helped me shift that mindset. And so I really just do feel like it's so powerful to use that framework that you shared, the self-reflection, but also writing out your core values and making sure that whatever actions, thoughts, beliefs that you have are aligned with that, which allows you to then be your authentic self in the way that you carry, whatever next steps you take. So
I think what's interesting about that is, there's a coaching fundamental that our thoughts become our beliefs and our beliefs become our actions, right? And so the internal thoughts and the narratives that we tell ourselves or that are told to us and spoken into us, whether that is from a key relationship that we have, maybe it is a truth that a parent has spoken into you, or a perceived truth that a parent has spoken into you, or a teacher or a coach or a mentor. There are people who are going to speak into your life, and those become, you've got your own thoughts and then you've got the thoughts of others. And if our thoughts start to become our beliefs, is that belief system yours, or is that belief system imposed upon you by someone else? What are your beliefs? And then, what are the actions that you take as a result of those thoughts and beliefs? And those are things that could propel us forward. And they are also things that can hold us back. And this is where getting clarity on what shapes you and identifying those key moments in your life. Some of the most amazing lessons that I learned in life were from the most difficult, dark times in my life. It wasn't from the sunshine and rainbows, because we can sit there and I can be very grateful for those moments and know what utopia looks like or knows what happiness looks like. The interesting thing about what it is that you said in that moment is happiness and success. Well, true happiness and true success is getting what you want. True happiness and true success is getting what you want. The complexity in all of that is you have to get clear on what it is that you want.
yeah.
Someone may say that you gave up corporate life. I'm sitting here saying you made a conscious choice for something greater than what you were living. It wasn't
Yep.
a give up. It was an exchange for more. It was an
Yeah.
exchange for better. That's how I'm wired.
Right. It's like I escaped one environment so that I can be free in another, maybe type of thing.
Sure,
But
I let go of this so I could pick up that.
right, and I'm super grateful. I
Right.
mean, a lot of my life has been shaped. My professional skills have been shaped thanks to, but it's just because one of those things where you're like, I only got so far. I can only get so far with it, and it's taken me to this new milestone, this new finish line, if you will, right? This new starting point for me, which now I feel like possibilities are endless. But I
Oh, I
wanted
get so
to
jazzed up for that, for you. That
thank you.
makes me
Yeah. I
happy.
wanted to add something that you were talking about with
Sure.
regards to like possibilities. Lately, I've been thinking that, again, this just kind of goes to what I thought was something, and then I have had to shift my mindset. But I think it's more powerful for us in the journey of defining our core values and deciding what we want, what we don't want is I was raised to believe that saying yes to things opens up so many doors for you, right? And I still agree with it, but I don't feel like that's just exclusive, the only philosophy. I think what's even more powerful as I've, grown more into my career and the choices I make it is the courage to be able to say no to things and how that helps strengthen how you can be more clear and defined on what your values are and how that helps you get what you want, right? And I think just having us for us to be able to have the courage to say no to the things that we know if we say yes to and it doesn't align with our mission or our values, it could derail us from our potential.
For years, I've been a student and an ambassador of Gary Keller and Jay Papasan's book, The One Thing. And that was really where I started to gain a lot of clarity on my journey and being able to go out and teach the methodology of the one thing for as many years as what I have. One of the key core things that comes up that robs us of our most productive life is our inability to say no. And I think one of the things that we have to recognize, and it's really even very clear in the principle in the book, is every time we are saying yes to something, we're actually saying no to something else. Every time we say yes to something, we're already
Yep.
saying no to something else. So is it
That's great.
possible that we just need to get comfortable in the fact that we're already making those choices? We're already creating those boundaries, but we firmly believe that no has a negative connotation. I always laugh about this because it's no, you can't go there. No, you can't touch that. From the time that we're a child, right? No, that's hot. Stay away from that. No, you can't talk to them. No, you can't date them. By the way, I wish I would have listened to that one far more often. That might have shared, anyway. So we'll just keep going on that one. However, it's the fact that no was a negative connotation. And if we
Right.
can reframe or shift our focus as we're talking about, no doesn't have to be a negative connotation. If someone approaches you to do something, you can always say, not at this time, not yet. Can we revisit that at another moment? Would love to help you with that. However, can we revisit that 3, 6, 9 months from now? Because there's this innate desire of us that we want to be people pleasers.
Yeah.
And if we say no to someone, we're hurting them or we're missing an opportunity. The world is full of FOMO. We know about this, right? The fear of missing out. And if we just really just reframe and take a step back, and it kind of goes to what we were talking about right before this, and it's part of the letting go.
Yeah.
There's a analogy that your arms can only be so full, right? So, I come home from the grocery store, I'm gonna, do everything that I can to bring everything in one trip. Are you like me? Do you need to do that? Where you open up the back of the car and now you're taking out all of these bags.
It's
You've
a
got
pride
6
point for
bags
me,
on this arm,
How
10
many can
bags
I
on.
take in one trip? That's like for me,
Exactly.
that's like a competition with myself.
Right. You're grabbing it with your teeth and then you're like, now I need to close the trunk. So, you're doing this with your elbow, you're doing this with your foot, and then you make your way over to the door, and then you're like, I can't get in. I've got all of these stuff, all of this that I am
Hmm.
carrying, and yet I can't enter in. And if
Yep.
you were to be able to let something go, what would you be able to pick up? What are you holding on to so tightly, whether it's for the sake of nostalgia or the way it's always been done, or, the thoughts that have been breathed into you by yourself or others, that if you could just set down one bag that's in your arm right now, gives you just that reach forward to open the door and enter in. And I think that sometimes, whether it's our thoughts or our beliefs or our inability to say no, that's what could potentially be holding us back from walking through the door of what we have yet to become, which is those possibilities that are on the other side of that door just waiting. And I didn't have to let everything go I was carrying. I just needed to let the one thing go that was occupying the hand that I needed to turn the knob. It's kind of a
That's huge.
powerful visual.
I love that analogy. Gosh, every time I'm always just like, just keep talking. Trish, I
Well,
want to end, I want
well,
to end this
thanks.
on
I'm
a,
glad you have 2 ears because sometimes I need people to listen, so it's good.
I want to end it on a high note because I thought that
You
was
bet.
just a wonderful way to close our conversation. Of course, we could probably talk about this forever. We both so passionate about this subject, but it's been so great to have you. So grateful to have spent this time learning from you and chatting about some of these similar journeys that we've had in the world, not only in client conversations but in leadership and life, community, mindset. But if anyone would like to get to know more about you, how can folks get in touch with you?
Oh, that's awfully sweet. Honestly, there's multiple ways that you can reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. And if there is a way for you to reach me, I would just say look up Tricia Brouwers. It's a BOL hyphen Browers. I kept my maiden name in there because, believe it or not, I had a life before my husband 32 years ago. And it's
Love
nice
that.
for people to be able to connect with me. And so Tricia Brouwers, I am Tricia Brouwers on LinkedIn as well. And So you can connect with me that way. You connect with me through Wintrust Mortgage, or you can connect with me through exactlywhattosay.com.
That's right. Oh, I'm super excited also have you come down in October for our Reframe conference for accountants. And I just can't wait to jam with you and have our folks who will be listening here also get a chance to meet you in person. So thank you,
Oh,
Trish,
I
for
can't wait to get to work with all of these amazing people that you are filling this room with.
super excited. Thanks again, Trish, for joining us. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time.
My pleasure.